She said it was just a bug bite, but 2 weeks later, I found out the truth. It wasn't a bug. It was betrayal. And the man she was just working late with had already stolen my wife. I don't even know where to start, but I guess the beginning's as good a place as any. It was a Thursday. Regular day. I'd just gotten home from work, made myself a protein shake, and settled into the couch to decompress. My wife, Ellie, usually got home around 6:30, give or take, depending on how long her shift ran. She's a project coordinator at a construction firm. Mostly office stuff, but she's been going out on site more lately, which she says is to get a better feel for the projects. I didn't question it at first. I mean, Ellie's always been ambitious, borderline obsessive with getting things just right, and I respected that. She came through the door at exactly 6:41. I remember because I had just flipped the channel to catch the local news and glanced at the clock. I also remember that she barely said a word to me when she walked in, just kind of floated past, mumbled hey, and went straight to the bedroom. I didn't think much of it. I figured maybe she had a rough day. Happens to the best of us. But when she came back out, I noticed something. It was small, maybe insignificant to someone else, but it caught my eye, a red mark, about the size of a quarter, just under the line of her jaw. Not exactly hidden, but not glaringly obvious either. The kind of thing you'd miss unless you were really looking. What happened to your neck? I asked. She blinked, paused for half a beat, then gave this half laugh and said, oh, that? Bug bite. I think something got me when I was out on site today. A bug bite. In November. I didn't say anything right away. Just nodded. Maybe it was a spider, I told myself. Maybe some random fly or whatever. But I felt this weird, hollow kind of twist in my gut. That's the moment I started watching her. I wish I could say I stopped myself, that I trusted her, but something had already shifted in my brain. It wasn't just the mark, it was the way she didn't kiss me when she got home like she usually did. The way she avoided eye contact. The way her phone didn't leave her hand the whole evening. I started keeping track of things. That night she said she was tired and went to bed early. Didn't want to cuddle. Didn't want to talk. I lay next to her, wide awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering why something so small felt so off. The next day, she was quiet again. I asked how work was, and she shrugged. Said it was fine. Then she buried herself in her phone. I'd ask what she was reading, and she'd say just stuff or work emails. She turned her screen away from me, which she never used to do. The following week, she had an overnight site visit, said she had to go check on a job that was running late and that she'd be driving out with a couple people from her team. When I asked who she was going with, she rattled off some names, fast, like she had practiced the list in her head. One of the names stood out, Drew. I'd never heard of a Drew before. So I asked. Drew? I said casually. Don't think I've heard that one before. Oh, she said quickly. He's new. Just started last month. Really smart guy, but kind of socially awkward. You'd hate him. That was supposed to reassure me, I guess. That I'd hate him. But that night I barely slept. I kept replaying the way she said his name. The slight smirk she gave. I couldn't shake it. Something about it was too rehearsed. Too specific. The following Monday, I decided to do something I'm not proud of. I checked her location on the app we both use. Normally it's just for safety, like if we're out late or one of us gets stuck in traffic, we can see where the other is. But that night, when she said she was working late and would be home around 8, I checked. She wasn't at her office. She wasn't even on site. She was parked at some random apartment complex about 15 minutes from her office. I stared at the dot on the map for what felt like an hour. Then I waited. She got home just before 9, said she'd gotten caught up in a meeting, then traffic. She smelled like cologne that wasn't mine. That was it. I knew. I didn't want to know, but I knew. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't have the strength. I felt like someone had knocked the wind out of me. I stayed up, sitting on the couch in the dark, listening to her breathing in the other room. The next few days were a blur. I was going through the motions, work, eat, sleep, barely, but my brain was on fire the entire time. I started noticing all these little things I had ignored before. How she stopped wearing her wedding ring a couple weeks ago because it was bothering her skin. How she started dressing differently. More makeup. Shorter skirts. Heels to job sites, which made no sense. I kept asking myself why. Why would she do this? Why now? We weren't perfect, but we were solid. At least I thought we were. We laughed. We had inside jokes. We talked about starting a family in the next year or two. We had plans. And now I was staring at a stranger in my own house. A stranger with a bug bite on her neck. Eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know for sure. So the next Friday, when she came home late again and tried to act like everything was normal, I didn't let it slide. We were eating dinner, takeout she brought home, something from that Thai place she always claimed was too oily before. I waited until halfway through the meal, then set my fork down and said it. "You seeing someone?" She froze. Literally just stopped chewing. She didn't look at me. Didn't answer. "I'm serious, Ellie," I said. "I want the truth." She swallowed slowly, then looked up at me. Her eyes were blank. Like she'd gone somewhere else in her head. "What are you talking about?" she said flatly. "That mark on your neck a couple weeks ago," I said. "The one you said was a bug bite." "Wasn't a bug, was it?" She looked down. Picked at her rice with her fork. "Ellie." I waited. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't accuse. I just waited. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she let out this tiny, breathless laugh and whispered, "I'm sorry." That was it. No dramatic confession. No begging for forgiveness. Just those two words. I felt my stomach drop. I asked her who it was. She said it was Drew. Said it had started a few months ago. One night they were working late, talking about stress, life, whatever. One thing led to another. She claimed it was a moment of weakness, but then admitted it had happened more than once. Way more than once. They weren't in love, she said. It was just physical. She said that like it was supposed to make me feel better. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just got up, walked to the bedroom, packed a duffel bag, and left. I couldn't be in that house with her another second. Now I'm crashing on my friend Kevin's couch, writing this on my phone because I can't sleep. I keep wondering how long I've been living in a lie. How many times she looked me in the eye and told me she loved me while sneaking around behind my back. How many people at her office know? How many of them laugh behind my back? I don't even know what the next step is. Divorce? Counseling? I haven't talked to her since I left. She texted me a few times. "Please talk to me. We can work through this." It didn't mean anything. But it meant enough to destroy everything we built. The first night on Kevin's couch, I barely slept. Not because the couch was uncomfortable, honestly, I've crashed there before after parties and it's always been surprisingly decent, but because every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Not the face I fell in love with. Not the face of the woman I married. But the face she made when she said I'm sorry. Cold. Detached. Like she'd rehearsed it. I thought I'd be furious. Like, throw a chair across the room furious. But I wasn't. I was numb. Angry, sure, but it was buried under this thick, slow-burning grief I didn't expect. Kevin didn't ask any questions at first. He just tossed me a blanket, nodded toward the mini fridge in his gaming room, and said, "Bee's cold, help yourself." The next morning, he finally sat down next to me while I stared blankly at the muted TV playing some infomercial about knives. "You gonna talk about it?" he asked, not looking at me. I shook my head. "Eventually." "Not now." He nodded. That was it. No pressure. That's why I went to him. He's the kind of guy who'll let you fall apart at your own pace, then hand you duct tape when you're ready. By Sunday, I had told him everything. From the bug bite to the apartment location on the map to the confrontation over Thai food. Kevin listened without interrupting, except to top off our drinks. When I was done, he just leaned back and said, "Damn, man." I let out a shaky laugh. "Yeah. What are you gonna do?" I stared at my phone. Ellie had texted me again that morning. "Ellie, I miss you. Please just talk to me. Can we meet somewhere, please?" "I don't know," I said finally. "I feel like if I go back, I'm telling her it was okay. That I can move on from this. But I don't know if I can." "You think she told you everything?" That question stuck with me. Did I believe I got the full truth? No. I didn't. I had the gut sense that there was more to it than she let on. That maybe the affair started earlier. That maybe Drew wasn't the only one. I don't know if that's paranoia or just my brain trying to prepare for more gut punches. I didn't reply to Ellie's messages. Not yet. Instead, I called my boss Monday morning and took a couple days off work. Told him I had a personal emergency. He didn't ask questions, just said take what I need. I think I scared him a little with how flat my voice sounded. That afternoon, I finally went back to the house. I didn't tell Ellie I was coming. I just wanted to grab a few things, some clothes, my laptop, a couple personal items. I half hoped she'd be out when I got there. She wasn't. She opened the door before I even put my key in the lock. She must have been sitting by the window. "Can we talk?" she said immediately. I looked at her. She looked awful. Hair a mess. Eyes puffy. No makeup. She was wearing my hoodie. The same one I'd left on the back of the dining chair the night I left. I stepped past her without answering. "I'm sorry," she said again, trailing behind me. "You already said that." "I know, but I need to say it again. And I need you to understand." I cut her off. Don't try to explain how it happened. I don't care." She looked like she'd been slapped. "It wasn't about you," she said quietly. That made me laugh. I dropped my duffel bag on the floor and turned to her. "Yeah, Ellie, I know it wasn't about me. It was about you. You and Drew. And whatever selfish need you were feeling when you let him take off your shirt. You think saying it wasn't about me makes me feel better? You think that makes it hurt less?" She started crying then. Real crying. Shaking. Lip quivering. The whole deal. And I just stood there, watching the woman I used to believe would never hurt me, fall apart in front of me. She sat down on the couch, head in her hands. I stared at her for a long time, then finally spoke again. "Why him?" She didn't answer at first. Just sniffled. "I don't know," she said. "It wasn't planned. We were working late one night. We were talking about stuff. Life, stress. He said all the right things. And I don't know, I was lonely, I guess." "Lonely?" That stung more than I expected. "Yeah," she said. "You were always working late. Or tired. Or busy. It's not your fault. I'm not blaming you. I felt disconnected. And then Drew started flirting, and I didn't stop it. And then it happened. And once it happened the first time, I couldn't stop. It felt like this escape. I felt like throwing up. You used him like a vacation," I said. "You destroyed our marriage because you wanted a break." She just kept crying. I didn't feel bad for her. "I didn't love him," she said. "I don't care." She looked up at me. "I don't want to lose you." "You already did." I picked up my duffel and started heading to the bedroom. She didn't follow me this time. Just sat there, crying softly. I grabbed more clothes, some framed photos from my desk, the watch my dad gave me before he passed, and the box of cards and letters Ellie had written me back when we were dating. I stared at the box for a long time before tossing it into the duffel. I didn't know why I took it. Maybe to remind myself that the good parts were real ones. Or maybe to remind myself what I'd lost. When I walked back out, she was still on the couch. "I'm staying with Kevin for a while," I said. "I'll let you know if I decide to come back. But I need space." She nodded. As I opened the door, she called out, "Do you still love me?" I paused. Then said the only honest thing I could, "I don't know." And I walked out. Back at Kevin's, I dropped my bag and collapsed on the couch. He was out, so I had the place to myself. I sat there in silence for hours, thinking about our wedding day. Our honeymoon. The dumb arguments we used to have about where to eat. The first time she told me she wanted kids someday. And then I thought about Drew. A guy I'd never met. A guy who stole something from me without even knowing me. Or maybe he did. Maybe she showed him a picture of me and they laughed. I don't know. That's the thing that kills me. I'll never know how deep it went. The next morning, I made a list. I'm a list guy. Always have been. It helps me organize the chaos in my head. This one was simple. 2 columns. Stay and try to fix it versus leave and start over. Under stay, I wrote history. Marriage vows. Good memories. She's sorry. Possible future with kids. Under leave, I wrote betrayal. Loss of trust. She lied repeatedly. I deserve better. I can't look at her the same. The leave column was twice as long. I haven't made a final decision yet. But if I'm being honest with myself, I think I already know what I have to do. The worst part? I still love her. That's the thing no one talks about. How you can love someone and still have to walk away. How betrayal doesn't always kill the feeling, just poisons it. Anyway, I've got an appointment with a therapist next week. Kevin's cousin recommended someone. Figured I should talk to a pro before I start signing divorce papers. Ellie's still texting. Less frequently now. She says she's willing to do counseling. That she'll do anything. But part of me wonders if she only wants to fix this because she got caught. I'll write more when I figure out what comes next. It's been just under 2 weeks since the night I walked out. Time moves weird in these situations. It feels like it's been months and minutes all at once. Like my life hit a wall and the pieces are still sliding down in slow motion. I didn't plan to see Ellie again so soon, but it happened. Not by accident, she asked me to meet her. Said she wanted to talk in person, and for some reason, I agreed. Maybe I was looking for closure. Maybe some twisted part of me hoped she'd say something that made it all make sense. We met at a small coffee shop halfway between her office and Kevin's place. I showed up 5 minutes early and sat at a window seat, drinking black coffee and staring at the rain. She came in wearing a raincoat, hair pulled back in a loose bun. No makeup. I barely recognized her at first. She sat down across from me and didn't speak right away. Just took a shaky breath and looked down at her hands. Thanks for coming, she said finally. I nodded. I've been going to therapy, she said. I had a session yesterday, and my therapist said I should be honest. Not just about what I did, but about everything that led to it. So that's what I'm going to try to do. You can listen or not. You can walk out. I won't blame you. I didn't move. Just waited. She took another breath and looked at me for the first time since she sat down. I never meant to hurt you. I know that sounds like garbage coming from me, but it's the truth. I wasn't looking for anything when it started. Drew, he was just there. He paid attention to me. Asked how my day was going. Made me feel like I mattered. You didn't feel like you mattered to me? I asked, keeping my voice level. I did, she said quickly. But not in the same way. It's like we were roommates, not partners. You were always tired. Always distracted. I'd talk and you'd nod, but I could tell your head was somewhere else. Work. Bills. Whatever. I felt invisible. I didn't know how to respond to that. Maybe I'd pulled away and hadn't even noticed. But even if that were true, it didn't justify what she did. I opened my mouth to say that, but she kept going. I should have talked to you. Told you how I was feeling. But I didn't. I kept it all inside. And when Drew came along, it was like the release. A way to feel seen again. I clenched my jaw. So you cheated because I didn't ask about your day enough? She flinched. No. I cheated because I was selfish and scared and too cowardly to face our problems like an adult. I know that. Then why did it keep happening? She looked down at her coffee. Because it felt good to feel wanted. Because every time I thought about stopping, I told myself I'd do it next time. But then there was always a next time. That hit harder than I expected. Not just the confession, but how easily it came out. Like she'd finally stopped lying, even to herself. I rubbed my temples. Did you ever think about what would happen if I found out? All the time, she said. And then I'd hate myself. I'd lay in bed next to you and feel like the worst human alive. And I told myself, if I ever get caught, I'll deserve whatever happens. But I didn't think it would actually happen. So the plan was just to lie forever? She didn't answer. The silence dragged out. Was he the only one? I asked. She shook her head instantly. Yes. I swear. It was just him. You swear. Like that means anything now. That stung her, but I didn't care. I don't want to stay married to someone who looks at me and sees a backup plan, I said. You're not a backup plan, she whispered. You're everything. I was just too stupid to realize it when it mattered. The rest of the conversation was a blur. We talked for another half hour, maybe more. She asked if I'd consider counseling. I didn't give her an answer. When I finally stood up to leave, she reached out and grabbed my hand. Just for a second. Just enough to remind me what it used to feel like when things were good. I still love you, she said. I didn't say it back. Back at Kevin's, I filled him in on everything. He didn't say I told you so. He just listened. Are you thinking about going back? He asked. I don't know. You should know, he said. Because if you stay in limbo too long, she'll keep trying. And you'll keep wondering. You'll get stuck. He was right. I was already stuck. I went to work the next day and couldn't concentrate. Everything reminded me of her. The coffee shop across the street. The playlist on my Spotify. Even the way my coworker Emily laughed at something reminded me of Ellie before she got quiet and strange and full of secrets. I sat in my car at lunch and stared at the house I used to live in, wondering if she was inside. Wondering if Drew ever came around now that I was gone. I thought about driving away. But instead, I texted her. "Me, are you seeing him?" The reply came fast. "Ellie, no." I cut off contact. I blocked him. I told HR everything. I couldn't live with the lie. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But belief is a fragile thing. Once it's broken, it never fits the same again. That weekend, I went to my parents' house for dinner. First time I'd seen them since this all went down. I hadn't told them the whole story yet, just that Ellie and I were having issues. My mom made lasagna. My dad poured me a beer and asked me how work was going. They didn't pry, but I could tell they were dying to know what happened. I caved and told them everything. Mom cried. Dad didn't say much, just clenched his jaw and muttered something about people not knowing what they have until they ruin it. Then he said something that stuck with me since. "Son, if you stay with her, you'll always be wondering where she is. Who she's texting. Why she's late. And if you leave, yeah, it'll hurt like hell. But it'll heal. And you'll know, without a doubt, that you didn't let yourself be anyone's fool." That night, I went back to Kevin's place and lay awake until 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't ready to go back. And maybe I never would be. But I needed to take the next step. I called Ellie the next morning and told her I wanted a trial separation. No contact for 30 days. No texts. No calls. No check-ins. I needed space to think, to breathe, to figure out what life looked like without her in it. She cried. Begged me not to do it. Said silence would kill her. I told her it already had. And I hung up. That was yesterday. Today, I woke up to an empty inbox. No messages. No missed calls. Just the quiet hum of the world moving on without us. I think I'm finally ready to move with it. I thought the silence would be peaceful. That I'd finally get a chance to breathe. But honestly, it was worse than the noise. The quiet has a way of forcing you to sit with things you don't want to feel. And there's no mute button for your own thoughts. The first few days after I told Ellie we needed a 30-day no-contact break, I kept reaching for my phone out of habit. Like some part of me still expected a good morning text or a meme she'd think I'd laugh at. I'd open my inbox and stare at nothing, then remember I told her not to message me. Then I'd sit there wondering if she was respecting the boundary or just forgetting I existed. Kevin kept checking on me, which I appreciated. But I could tell he was starting to wonder if I was going to get stuck in neutral forever. I'd wake up, scroll Reddit, work a little, go for a walk, scroll more, sleep. Rinse and repeat. Not much else. Eventually, he sat me down and asked, "You waiting for her to break the rule?" I knew what he meant. Was I hoping she'd text anyway? That she'd show up crying on the porch, begging me to come home? That maybe she couldn't handle the silence, and it would validate the idea that she still wanted me. I didn't answer him. Because deep down, yeah, I was kind of hoping she'd cave first. But she didn't. Not after 1 day, or 3, or 7. It was like we'd both vanished from each other's lives, and somehow, the world kept spinning. I started using the time to do things I'd been putting off. Cleaned out my inbox. Deleted half the junk on my phone. Started jogging again. I even went to a cooking class with Kevin's sister, who runs a local community center. She said I looked like someone who needed to chop something and not get arrested. She wasn't wrong. We made chicken piccata. It was decent. I also started therapy. It wasn't something I ever pictured myself doing, to be honest. But after sitting with all the wreckage of the last month, I realized I needed help sorting through it. I didn't want to be one of those guys who bottles it all up until it explodes on someone else years later. The therapist, Janet, was a sharp, middle-aged woman with no filter and a deep empathy I didn't expect. The first session, I gave her the short version. Told her about the bug bite, the affair, the apartment parking lot, all of it. She didn't blink. "Do you want to save the marriage?" she asked. "I don't know," I said. "That's okay," she replied. "But you do need to ask yourself a different question. Can you forgive someone who hasn't earned it yet?" That stuck with me. I carried it around for days like a pebble in my shoe. Because I hadn't even let Ellie try to earn it. I just left. And the truth is, I wasn't sure I wanted her to. Around day 17, I ran into Drew. I swear I didn't go looking for him. It was pure chance. I was at a gas station grabbing a soda, and he walked out of the Minimart holding an energy drink and a pack of gum. For a second, I didn't even recognize him. Just another guy in a hoodie and work boots. Then he saw me and froze. I'll admit, my blood pressure spiked. I didn't know what I was going to say. I didn't even plan to say anything. But my feet moved before my brain could stop them. "You drew?" I asked. He blinked. "Yeah. I'm Ellie's husband." His face went pale. "Oh. Man, I'm so sorry. I didn't know, well, I mean, I knew obviously, but I didn't think it would." I cut him off. "Did you love her?" His eyes widened. No. No. I swear. It was just. He trailed off. "Just what?" I pressed. He looked away. "Just something I shouldn't have done. Did you know she was still sleeping with me while it was going on?" He flinched like I'd slapped him. "I didn't ask." I nodded. "Right." There was a long pause. He looked like he wanted to say something else. Maybe apologize again. Maybe defend himself. I didn't give him the chance. "Don't talk to her again," I said. "If you care at all about fixing what you helped break, stay away from her." He nodded. I walked away. I wish I could say it felt satisfying. That it gave me closure. But it didn't. It just made the whole thing feel smaller. Like he wasn't some villain. Just a weak guy who made a selfish choice. Like Ellie. That somehow made it worse. By day 23, I had started writing down everything I wanted to say to Ellie. Not because I planned to send it, but because I needed it out of my head. Stuff like, "You turned our marriage into a lie because you were bored. You said it didn't mean anything, but it meant enough to hide for months. You looked me in the eye and kissed me while someone else's hands were still on your skin." And then other stuff. Stuff that surprised me. "I still love the version of you I knew before this. I don't know how to stop caring about you. I hate that I miss you. It's a weird thing, loving someone who hurt you. You don't get to shut it off like a light switch. It leaks out of you in the quiet moments. When you hear a song. When you make too much coffee out of habit. When you reach for a towel and remember the one she used to steal because it was softer." And that's when I realized something. I didn't want to stay because I trusted her. I wanted to stay because I missed who she used to be. But that person? That version of her? She didn't exist anymore. Maybe she never did. So on day 26, I called my lawyer. And started the process. When day 30 came, I drove to the house one last time. Ellie answered the door looking nervous but composed. She didn't say anything, just stepped aside and let me in. I sat down on the couch. The same place where she'd once confessed everything. She sat across from me and waited. I took a breath. "I'm filing for divorce," I said. Her lips parted slightly, but she didn't interrupt. I thought a lot about whether this could be fixed. Whether I could ever really look at you and not see him. Whether I could ever feel safe again in a house where I used to feel loved. And the truth is, I can't. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she still didn't say a word. "I'm not saying this to punish you. I need to move forward. For real. And I can't do that with you in my life." She sniffled. "Okay," she whispered. "I understand. I'll get my stuff next week. I'll have my lawyer reach out." She nodded. I stood up. And then, because I'm human and weak and still healing, I turned back one last time. "I hope you find whatever you were looking for. I really do." She covered her face with her hands, sobbing quietly. I walked out the door. This time, it didn't feel like running away. It felt like freedom. It's been 3 months since I walked out of that house for the last time. 3 months since I let go of a future I spent years building in my head. 3 months since I stopped waiting for apologies to fix what actions had already broken. I won't pretend it's been easy. Some mornings I still wake up reaching for her out of habit. There are days when I smell something familiar, her shampoo, a certain brand of tea, and it stops me cold. Like I've time traveled to a life that doesn't exist anymore. But I'm getting better. Not perfect. Not even close. But better. The first few weeks after I filed for divorce were a blur of paperwork, awkward conversations with family, and biting my tongue when well-meaning people asked, "Are you sure? Couldn't you try counseling?" Like trust was a switch you could just flip back on. There were others, though. Friends I hadn't talked to in months who checked in once they heard through the grapevine. My sister called me every other night just to talk. Kevin never let me isolate too long, dragged me out for trivia nights, hiking, even convinced me to take a short road trip down the coast just to get out of my own head. Therapy helped, too. Janet never let me wallow. She made me face the parts of myself that needed work, not just as a husband, but as a man. We dug into things I hadn't thought about in years. Old wounds. Insecurities. The ways I showed up in the relationship that may have made Ellie feel like she was fading into the background. But the thing Janet reminded me over and over again was this: Ellie's choices were still her own. Her cheating wasn't a reflection of my worth. It wasn't proof that I failed. It was a failure of character on her part. I could own my flaws without taking responsibility for hers. That was a turning point for me. Because for a long time, even after I left, I was still carrying the weight of her guilt on my shoulders. We finalized the divorce quietly. No big drama. She didn't fight me on anything. We didn't have kids, and everything else was pretty cleanly divided. She kept the house. I didn't want it. It was just a building now. One filled with memories that hurt more than they helped. I ended up getting a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, just one bedroom, decent light, and a balcony with a crooked railing that overlooks a dog park. Watching other people's dogs play while I sip coffee in the morning became my new routine. Funny how quickly you start creating new rituals when the old ones stop working. I also went back to work full-time, threw myself into projects, started saving for travel. For the first time in years, I asked myself what I wanted. Not what we wanted. Not what made sense as a couple. Just me. I learned I like sleeping diagonally across the bed. That I don't miss sharing a blanket. That I can cook a mean mushroom risotto if I actually follow the recipe instead of improvising. I also started writing again. Nothing serious, just journaling, short stories, little pieces of fiction that helped me sort through the chaos in my head. Sometimes I'd find myself writing about her. Not Ellie, exactly, but the idea of her. The version I used to believe in. And over time, even that started to fade. I saw her once. Just last week. I was at the grocery store grabbing coffee and oat milk when I turned a corner, and there she was, standing in front of the cereal aisle. She looked up, saw me, and froze. It was a weird moment. Not angry. Not sad. Just quiet. We nodded at each other. I gave her a half smile. She smiled back. And that was it. No words. No small talk. No rehashing the past. We just kept walking. And it didn't hurt like I thought it would. It felt peaceful. Like seeing someone you used to know in a dream. Familiar, but distant. So where does that leave me now? I don't have all the answers. But I know this: I'm not broken. I'm not bitter. I'm not defined by what she did. I'm rebuilding. Slowly. Brick by brick. And for the first time in a long time, I'm doing it for myself. I don't know what's next. Maybe love again, someday. Maybe a dog of my own to watch run around the park. Maybe a long overdue trip to the Grand Canyon just because I feel like it. What I do know is that I won't settle for half-truths anymore. I won't ignore the quiet red flags. And I won't ever let someone else's choices make me question my worth again. She was a chapter. Not the whole story. And I'm still writing. Thanks for reading.